This is the lecture for the Self and Social Development chapter. In today's lecture, we're going to work to define social cognition, and then we'll concentrate mostly on children's sense of self, the self-concept, self-esteem, and self-efficacy. We'll talk a little bit at the end about how to promote a healthy sense of self, or some examples in the classroom that you could use. Take a look at self and social development now. So we have objectives here in red that we want to cover. We're going to start with the definition of what social cognition is. We'll define children's sense of self, self-concept, self-esteem, and self-efficacy. This is where we're going to spend the majority of our time here on sense of self. The reason why we talk about the sense of self is because children use their sense of self to help them understand others. Okay, so even though it's self and social, we'll focus more on the self piece. The social part is in your book. So you're going to want to take a look at Spencer's model of identity development. That will help. And then talking a little bit about aggression, which your textbook has a good section on as well. Sound good? All right. Before we get to our YouTube clip, I want to go through our definition of social cognition so that it's really clear so that we can use that understanding to help us interpret the YouTube video. So social cognition is the process of thinking about how other people are likely to think, act, and react, and then choosing your own actions or behaviors accordingly. So there's multiple pieces to this definition, just like all of our definitions in psychology, right? They're pretty loaded. So what we think about other people's thinking. So it's related to the self, what we're thinking, our predictions of other people's thoughts. And we know that that's a very abstract process. Piaget told us that. Right? He said we don't really think about other people's thinking until concrete operations and even formal operations. So these are our older students. With that said, this is a developmental skill. So it's not that these pieces aren't in place in younger ages. They are. They're just less mature and less developed. Okay. The second piece of the definition is important too, and that's interpreting what you're thinking about other people and reacting accordingly. So the behavior piece is important. It's not only that I'm thinking about your thoughts, but I'm doing so based on my own understanding of myself, and then I change my behavior or act accordingly based on my understanding of what's going on in a social situation. So it's a very complex process, right? Yeah, Chance.
So this would be like if you had your arms crossed and my normal arms crossed, like I'm upset or something, I would come up and handle it differently.
Exactly. So that's a great example. So I'm glad you bring that up. If I'm up here like this, you guys might be less willing to come talk to me about something, right? But you've thought about what I'm thinking about, and then you change your behavior. Really good example. Yeah. So social cognition is mostly defined and talked about in the literature as theory of mind. So this is the topic of study in developmental psychology. Theory of mind being a developmental theory, not an educational theory. Okay? So awareness that people have these inner thoughts, beliefs, and feelings. So you know what I'm thinking about, or that I'm thinking about something, that I'm feeling something. I'm aware that you guys are also thinking and feeling things. We use them during our social interactions, so there's some perspective taking where I can say, I wonder what Jessica's thinking right now, or how is Stephanie feeling? Okay, so there's some empathy there, some behavior change there. And the factors that contribute to children's development of theory of mind include, first of all, brain maturation. And so that does reflect itself in Piaget's theory. Until you are a certain age, you do not have this abstract thinking skill. We want to bridge that all the way back to the beginning of the semester when we talked about brain maturation. And then there are environmental factors as well that are going to contribute to theory of mind. So conversations that students have with adults. So if I talk a lot about my feelings, and your feelings and why people behave particular ways, if I have those conversations where I explain behavior with my students or my children, I can increase their theory of mind or the development of that skill early on. Socio-dramatic play has also been shown to have an effect on theory of mind. So socio-dramatic play being pretend play, there's a lot of role playing in there, right? So you can see how they're playing with social interactions, with different roles, with reacting to one another. So having free time for children to play in this way does also contribute to their cognitive growth. Make sense? All right, so let's get to our YouTube clip for today. It's entailed in the sense of self. So before children can really gain this theory of mind, they need to have a good understanding of themselves, because that contributes to it, right? So if I want to think about what you're thinking, I have to have some good understanding and recognition of my own thoughts, my own behaviors, and how then I can go a step further onto how those things might affect you. So I have here on the slide that before gaining theory of mind, children develop what we call the sense of self. And the sense of self is children's knowledge, beliefs, judgments, and feelings about who they are. It's made up of 3 parts. So these are the 3 parts that I've outlined for you on this handout. We're not going to share the answers of these with each other. This is for your own personal reflection. Okay, but I do want you to give it a go right now. See if you can answer these 3 questions using the bullet points. So for me, I would say, who am I? 3 short answers. How I would describe myself. I would probably put that I'm a teacher. I would probably put that I'm athletic, and I think I'm pretty funny, so. But who am I? Okay, so go ahead, just a couple minutes here to fill out all 3 of these questions as a personal reflection, and you'll use this to help you interpret these concepts as we go to talk about the children. So there are some that sounds better to this example. Okay. Yeah. No, that's okay. No. Okay, so you can continue to reflect on this as we work through these different concepts, but I do want to push forward. We have the 3 outlined here. So we have self-concept, self-efficacy, and then self-esteem. And these are really the questions that are being answered within these 3 different areas. So self-concept, who am I? Right, and those were the examples that I gave you. So I might say I am a teacher. Okay? Or maybe I'm a husband or a wife. Okay? Or a friend. Or maybe I'm funny. Right? And then self-efficacy we talked about last week with motivation. So that should be a familiar concept to you. How well do you think you can perform something? And remember, with motivation, self-efficacy really does have an effect on whether or not children approach academic tasks, seek out challenges, how hard they work, all of those things. So it increases their motivation when they have high self-efficacy. So in my example, how well can I do X or Y? If it's teaching, I might say, I'm not very good at that. Or maybe I'm okay at that. Or if it's I'm funny, I'm really not that funny. I don't think that I am. So that would be my self-efficacy for that. Okay? And then self-esteem is overall. It's a bigger picture of how I appraise my skills, my abilities, the value that I have as a person. So this is really more of a bigger picture issue, whereas these we can break down into smaller things. Now they come all together to form this one domain or one area of sense of self. Okay. So it might be more clear as we look at just a few examples in this compare and contrast. So self-concept, the perceptions of one's beliefs and attitudes, so qualities or characteristics. It's a cognitive component, which means it's a thinking component. We think about this. And now that's different than a feeling. It's our thought. Okay? So answers the question, who am I? What am I like? How would I describe myself? So when you ask young children in preschool this question, who am I or who are you? What do you think they typically tell you? Their name. Yeah, that's one of the first ones. Their name.
How old they are.
How old they are, that's a huge one. Also their gender. That's one of the big ones. I'm a boy. Yeah. How about as we get a little bit older? How might it get a little bit more complex? Yeah.
Sometimes, I don't know if this is how common it is, but they tell you whatever they're pretending to be at that moment, like, or they want to be like, I'm Superman.
Sure.
You know?
Okay. So idealistic in a way, but
Yeah.
pretend, play. Yeah, sure. Related to that are the things that they have. So I have a basketball. I am a basketball player. They'll say their objects, the toys that are around them. They'll use that to describe themselves.
Their color, their hair, their eyes.
Yep, physical
Their
characteristics.
clothes that they're wearing.
Physical characteristics become big. Sure. And then if we go a little bit older than that, now let's go into middle school.
All their interests, like what kind of music am I?
Yeah, and the things that they're good at too. So the interests or the areas that they have high self-efficacy. So within school or extracurricular activities.
Their personalities.
Personalities. This is where adjectives come out more. Yeah.
So they'll start saying,
I'm cool, I'm prettier, I'm whatever. Yeah. Yeah.
They start to develop sort of their groups, their cliques, like they'll identify with their friends.
Yeah. And that becomes really important in adolescence. Yeah. So as we look towards adolescence, they identify themselves with their groups or their peers. And then you'll also see abstract ideas, religious ideas coming out. I am a good person, more global, big issues. I'm a Democrat, things like that. All right, self-efficacy is the beliefs that they have about how they can affect themselves or their skills. So related to motivation, which we talked about last week, how good am I at those particular things? Answers the question, how well do I feel that I can perform a particular task? So you've got your student, if we're thinking about education here, they could be, an 8th grade student studying math, but do they feel like they are good at math and they can accomplish the math that they're, studying at that time? Self-efficacy early on is very high. So students in elementary school think they're great at everything. It's great. It's good. It's a good tool for teachers. And this tends to go down with the specialization of the content domains and the difficulty of the work and the importance of peers. The last one is self-esteem. Comprises an individual's evaluated feelings about oneself. So this is the self-evaluation. So this is where we have the affective component, feelings. So we're thinking over here about who we are. This is how we feel about who we are. See the distinction between the two? Answers the question, how would I rate myself in areas that are important to me or overall? Self-esteem, developmental trend early on, high self-esteem. Okay? And then we see that decline into adolescence. Not for all children, but for a lot of them, they're highly critical of themselves. Even those children that we consider to be popular or who have lots of friends are still very highly critical of themselves. This persists into adulthood also. It's something that I think as a society we've challenged a lot, this idea of self-esteem. Has anyone seen the Dove commercial recently with the sketching of the women?
So cool.
So yeah, women will describe themselves to an artist and they'll sketch themselves, and then another person will describe that same woman and it'll be sketched, and the images are very different. The one that somebody else described is a good image of that person, not more beautiful, less beautiful, but accurate. And the self-described is typically not so great looking. Yeah. So this is, you know, something that persists on into our adult ages. Some examples of how these all fit together, why we consider this all one global concept of our sense of self. So here's a good example. My self-concept could be I am a swimmer. My self-esteem is that I take pride in it, athletes are well respected, I feel good about being a swimmer. And my self-efficacy then is, well, I think I'm capable of participating on a swim team or going and swimming competitively. I think that I could win. I think I could do well. I'm not interested in geography, a more education example. So this is how I'm defining myself. I'm not interested in this. My self-esteem is not affected because maybe I don't care, right? And that's something that we do. We handicap ourselves, or we make excuses. We downplay subjects or things that we're not as good at to help protect this sense of self. So I don't care, it doesn't affect my worth at all because geography isn't important to me. And then here, being a geography buff is not a high priority for me. I believe that if I chose to make it a priority, I could do it. But I can't be sure unless I pursue this field of study. We'll skip down to, actually, let's go over each of them. I think they're both helpful. I'm a closet singer. This one's actually true of me. What I mean by that is I sing in the car, in the shower, but not with people, right? So I'm identifying myself as someone that really loves to sing. My self-esteem is affected by this, because I would feel better about myself if I was a better singer, okay? And so my self-efficacy is I don't believe that I'm worthy of singing in front of people. I don't believe I can be successful at that. Now here's an interesting example at the end, also education related. I am a cheater, meaning on exams and schoolwork. Self-esteem, I don't take pride in it, I feel bad when I cheat, but look at my self-efficacy. I'm capable of doing it and I do it all the time, I'm pretty good at it. So you see how these aren't all just clear-cut. It's not that all of them are high or all of them are low. It's a nice intermingling of all of these things. So you can be high self-esteem but low self-efficacy, or the other way around for any of the ways that you define who you are. So why do we care? Why is this important, especially for teachers? The sense of self serves some pretty important functions for us. So first, it helps children understand why things happen to them. So for example, if they were picked last out at recess to play a game, they're going to use their sense of self to help understand that situation. And it's going to have an effect on their sense of self. Same thing with getting a good or a bad grade on something, feedback from a teacher. They're going to use the sense of self to help them interpret what that means. And that event is going to help shape their sense of self. It does motivate behavior, and remember, motivation can be in either direction. It's going to motivate me to work harder, or it's going to motivate me to work less hard, to avoid. Helps them envision their future selves and make goals. Goal setting is really important for education, right? And then I have number 5 and 6 over here, because that's probably the biggest piece. This is the one to highlight or star. So it provides them with this sense of self-worth. Really self-esteem is the part of it here that I'm talking about. So it protects our self-worth or our esteem. We tend to downplay our weaknesses. This is what you're going to see in the classroom. So this is where you're going to see students who say, math is stupid, math is dumb. Who needs to know this? Nobody needs to learn about this. They're downplaying it, and it's reflecting on their sense of self. Okay, on their efficacy for that subject and on their esteem for that subject. So they'll demonstrate other self-handicapping behaviors as well. And by self-handicapping, what I mean is behaviors that they do that will decrease the chances that their self-worth is hurt or decreased. So for example, procrastinating, reducing their effort, or setting unattainable goals are the 3 that I have up there. When I do those things, there's a less likely chance that I'll be successful at the task at hand. Why would I do that? Why would I give myself less of a chance to be successful? Because what?
Low self-esteem.
Because of my low self-esteem, sure. But then I have an excuse, right? I have an excuse of why I did poorly. So if I don't feel like I'm good at math, I don't have high self-efficacy or esteem at my skills at math, I'm going to wait to the last minute to do my math homework. And then when I wait to the last minute, the chances of me succeeding are going to be less, but I'm going to have an excuse for why I did so bad. And it protects my sense of worth, right? So it protects this because I have a reason why now. Yeah, of course I didn't do well. First off, math is stupid. And second off, I didn't really try. So of course I didn't do well. Right? This is what we run into with our students all the time. So this last piece here, the behaviors that you see, such as putting something off, not trying hard, setting goals that they know they can't reach, all of that is mirroring this sense of self issue in your students, the efficacy or the esteem. So with that said, is it the teacher's job to increase students' self-esteem? No. I don't know who said it, but yeah, no. I would say no. I would say it's not our job to increase their self-esteem. I think that you can teach in such a way that it will increase it, but my primary objective as a teacher is for you to learn something. The reason why I say that is because sometimes you have to be harsh with your students. You have to say, no, this is wrong. You needed to spend more time on that. I see what's happening here. Right? And that's not being all cushiony and lovey and sometimes, yeah. Huh?
Oh, just like, you need to apply yourself, you have a lot of potential.
Yeah.
And then it's just kind of feeding into that, like, yeah, I could do it,
but I don't have to, right? When I just say, you're smart enough to do this, why haven't you done it? I'm not really getting the message across that I need to. I wouldn't say that it's the job of the teacher, but it's something to keep in consideration. And it's something, especially with our younger ones, our older ones too, I want to exclude them, that you want to be sensitive of in your teaching methods. Okay. All right, so if you flip over your page here, you'll see 2 separate boxes. The first one on the top is Spencer's model of identity development. We're not going to spend time looking at that, but I have this outline for you to help you as you read through or study that material. I do want you to take a look at the box below. So here we have enhancing students' emotional well-being and sense of self. These 8 different items came from our textbook. We have 10 minutes, so what I'd like you to do with the peers around you is select one of these and generate an example of what this might look like or how you could promote that skill with your students. So we'll come together in about 5 minutes to discuss some of these.
Here are the implications that the students are working on in pairs or small groups. Try this out on your own. You want to look at these implications and see if you can generate some examples. In the end of this lecture, you'll hear class discussion from the examples that the students generated themselves.
4 groups here. So each group maybe to share one of the things that you talked about. So you guys might go first here in the front. So first off, which of these options did you pick? Sure.
We were talking about with, I guess you could go along with 5 or 6.
Okay, so 5 or 6, provide opportunities to explore a wide variety of activities and domains, or communicate respect for diverse ethnic and cultural backgrounds.
Yeah, and our idea was that you know, especially for the ethnic and cultural backgrounds, like the example we had was like in 4th grade, we had a teacher that every single week throughout the year we would explore a different cultural style of teaching, or how like students would come to a classroom. And I remember like specifically we had like one where we had to bring in like a pillow and sit on the ground, and our tables were lowered, and then we got to, try different foods or things like that throughout the week. It was kind of a cool idea, or it just showed us how different things work.
Awesome. Great example. How about the second row here? What did you guys think about?
It could go for 5 or 7.
Okay, so just to reiterate, 7, give youngsters second chances to develop healthy self-perceptions.
So, like in a preschool classroom, allow them to pick what they want to do, whether it be like during free center time, or like going to soccer practice or dance class, or stretch and grow, which is something we do where the kids just go and exercise, or like go to the sandbox where you can go paint at the art easel, or you can go draw, or you can go to building blocks. They get to pick it. Doesn't matter.
And so how will that help them develop this self-perception piece?
Well, when people, like when other kids make a comment about boys playing with Barbies or baby dolls or something,
Okay.
they can do that if they want to. That's what they chose to do. Back up, leave them alone.
Sure. So some of it is respecting other people's choices. And I think the conversation you have with the kids is the important part there. Right? So if somebody chooses to do something that doesn't fit maybe a gender stereotype, let's have a conversation about what that means. Or doesn't. Right. Yeah, sure. What about you guys?
We took a look at number 7.
Okay, so the same one.
We're trying to relate it to older students in high school or something, and we started talking about, if someone like bombs a test, but like maybe they're showing that they're working really hard in the class and that they're taking notes and doing the work, that you might give them maybe a second chance on the test, or ways to improve their score on it, show that they know the material, because they might just not be good test takers or something, and they can show and prove that they know the material.
Sure. So I would say rewarding hard work. When a student is really trying hard, really working hard, you as a teacher recognizing that, and then allowing them opportunities, to correct maybe something that happened that was unfortunate.
And then believe in themselves too, that instead of just being like, oh, I found it myself.
Right.
Saying, oh, they believe in me to give me another chance to be good. I should believe in myself, and actually really, it makes me want to do better for myself and others better.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, not always, but hopefully. Yeah. How about you guys? What did you talk about?
Yeah, we talked about the 4th one, about being honest about children's shortcomings.
Sure, so it says be honest about children's shortcomings, but also provide guidance and support for children who need to overcome them. So what was your example?
We talked about like when it comes to math, they're really good at addition, but they struggle in multiplication. Kind of be like, well, you're good at addition, but you're not putting as much effort towards multiplication, maybe because they don't like it, so they don't want to do it, or it's hard, so they don't want to try and put in a lot of effort. So showing them that they're good at something, but at the same time being like, well, you really need to work on something else.
I'm so glad you said that, because that's a great way of building sense of self while still having high expectations and still showing them where the shortcomings are. Yeah, which is exactly what you want to do. And I like the word effort that you used. So building a growth mindset, right? It's all about the effort. It's not just about if you are good or not good at something. If you work towards it, you could, succeed. Awesome. All right, so those are some examples. You might want to take some time to fill this in on your own as you study and review materials. Here's what we covered. Here's what we did not get a chance to cover.
This is the summary from today's lecture. We have what we covered and then what we did not cover. You really want to make sure you focus in on the difference between self-concept, self-esteem, and self-efficacy. All of these things building up and having an effect on the sense of self. Take a look also at the things we did not cover and spend some time in your readings studying those concepts.